Hey everyone! Welcome to the second installment of my Mythic Plus Dungeon Tanking Guide series. In this video, I'll walk you through a route that I find works well with random groups, while also explaining the most important abilities and mechanics from a tank's perspective. I've adjusted the optimal route suggested by experienced players in the community to make it more prog friendly, minimizing the most common mistakes players tend to make in random groups. The goal is to give you the confidence to start tanking keys, or to help you better understand what's happening around you while doing so. This time we'll be covering the new dungeon Operation Floodgate. We'll be heading down the right path, avoiding the patrolling snipers on the left and starting with the 4 hyenas that walk towards you. Pull them along with the patrolling pack containing the dark fused demolitionists to your right and gather them all in the open space, likely also pulling the undercrawler, which is fine. Ideally, you would skip the demolitionist and pull the 4 hyenas into the next pack with bloodlust, while avoiding the shredder to your left. However, in almost every run, the demolitionist ended up getting pulled anyway, and in one case it even kept us in combat without us noticing, slowing us down quite a bit. You can use bloodlust on the upcoming boss. Splitting this up also lessens the strain on you as a tank, since the hyenas buff the haste of the other hyenas around them and heal them occasionally. The Dark Fused Demolitionist has one key ability to watch out for, the RPG. This leaves a large bombardment of bat on the ground, which you will need to avoid. On this right side you should have enough space to do so. But since it's a long cast, stunning it just before it goes off can completely shut it down with a bit of coordination. For the next pack, group the Dark Fused Bloodwarper with the 2 soldiers and the 3 hyenas in the back. Be ready to interrupt the Bloodwarper's first cast immediately, so you can move him and pull the pack back a little bit. Otherwise, there's a high chance someone will accidentally pull the shredder nearby. The soldiers apply a stacking shadow damage debuff, while the Bloodwarper casts Warp Blood, which deals significant damage to everyone around him and absorbs healing received. While this ability doesn't hit you too hard as the tank, using a defensive here will help burn him down faster. Big Mama is the first boss you'll encounter in this dungeon, and it's surrounded by 4 drones, each with a different ability. Once all 4 drones are down, the boss will cast Jumpstart, which is a long cast that makes her take 200% increased damage until she gets the drones back up. This is the best time to use Bloodlust to maximize damage. When positioning her, move to one of the far ends of the area so you have enough space, as she leaves a large puddle of electrical bat behind. She also targets a random player with Sonic Boom, blasting them away until they hit an obstacle and dealing AoE damage within 7 yards of that point. From what I've seen, it only targets the tank when no one else is in range, so just avoid it. If you do get caught in it, strafing left or right should get you out before you hit something, as long as you have enough space. The main tank buster to watch out for is Electro Crush, which deals a good chunk of nature damage, so be ready to mitigate it. As for the drones, the main thing to look out for are avoiding Doomstorm, which bombards a straight line towards a random player, and interrupting maximum distortion. One of the drones will also shield the boss, and I believe this only happens when it's the last one left, but I'm not completely sure on that one. Either way, once the shield goes up, that drone needs to be prioritized, as the shield will drop once it's taken down. Once the boss is down, you'll encounter 2 small packs that together consist of 4 soldiers and a Bloodwarper. You'll need to take them out to destroy the stockpile. The next pack will be a bit larger, so playing defensively here is advised. Start by pulling the 2 soldiers and 2 hyenas at the right end of the stairway to your left, and be careful not to aggro the 2 snipers standing on the other side of the stairs. Then pull the 5 leaderbots to the left of the stairs as you walk towards, along with the 2 patrolling soldiers on it. Be ready for a significant amount of AoE damage from the Wind Up ability, together with the Empower damage on you from the other mobs, so defensive cooldowns will be helpful here. The next pack is a tedious mix of abilities stacked up on top of each other. You'll be pulling the Bloodwarper, Sniper and Demolitionist along with the 4 contractors in the back. The Demolitionist should be interrupted as much as possible, especially near the end of its RPGG cast, to prevent the large ground clutter AoE from going off. The Sniper is particularly rough for the healer, as it has a dangerous combination of abilities. Trick Shot, which deals heavy AoE damage to the group, and Snipe, which hits hard on a single target. Meanwhile, the contractors don't do much and can be cleaved down without much concern. This is a dungeon where having the ping command bound is especially helpful as a tank. When taking the glider down, do not aim for the opposite side with the bullseye. Instead, glide to the platform on your left, in the direction you came from, heading towards the next stockpile, which rounds up the western part of the dungeon. Make sure to ping your landing spot before anyone jumps on the glider to ensure everyone is aware of where you're going, avoiding unnecessary confusion. Once on the platform, you could opt for a massive pull, grabbing all the mobs on the platform along with the hyenas and soldiers at the top of the next set of stairs, as some people suggest. However, with players getting bolted down, rooted in place, and the architect refusing to move while on a scaffolding, I find this way too messy. Instead, I prefer to split these up. For the first pull, take the contractors, surveyors, leaderboards and architect together. The surveyor casts Surveying Beam, which follows a player and leaves a patch of lava, which needs to be directed away from the group. He also bombards everyone with easy throw dynamite, dealing moderate group-wide damage. The architect is another threat, as he bolts players down, applying a heavy bleed, and frequently jumps onto a scaffolding with rapid construction, making him untargetable until the scaffolding is down. Once these are down, take the next pack of contractors and surveyor and run up the stairs to body pull the hyenas and soldiers. Careful with AoE or cleaving attacks, since you don't want to pull the snipers that patrol close by. Moving towards the last stockpile in the western part of the dungeon, be sure to avoid the patrolling snipers and pull everything on the platform, except for the 3 small leaderboards to your left. If no one has ninja pulled a Shreddinator earlier, this will be the first time dealing with one. At regular intervals, it will spawn Shredation saw blades beneath everyone's feet. Move away immediately as soon as they appear to create space for its flamethrower ability, which is a frontal fire attack that sweeps in a half circle as the Shreddinator turns. Once the pack is down, destroy the stockpile and move back down, avoiding the bombshell crabs below. Moving over the water toward the eastern part of the dungeon, you'll need to pull the 6 Venture Code divers patrolling the area. If left uninterrupted, they will plant Sephorium charges, which detonate for massive damage and knock players into the air if they come in contact with them. They also use Harpoon, a physical damage dot that can be deadly if a player is pulled over a bomb. Any form of AoE crowd control will be helpful here to keep things under control. Additionally, be sure to avoid the large circles from the ship above. Reaching the next platform, you'd ideally want to pull everything together. However, since both ends of the platform have an architect perched on scaffolding, you can't engage them immediately, because pulling them both at once would make things unnecessarily messy. Start by taking down the scaffolding from the left architect, and once it is down, move over to the right. Focus down that scaffolding as quickly as possible, as you want to avoid accidentally pulling a bombshell crab from below. These crabs can be particularly annoying because they explode for heavy AoE damage, which can be tedious and sometimes difficult for the healer to handle. At the top of the stairs, pull the 2 Shreddinators along with the surveyor and contractor behind them. Be careful not to move past the stairs leading towards the boss, because you don't need the extra pack for percentage, and they can be easily skipped. The next boss fight in the dungeon is against the Demolition Duo, Geezle Quick Fuse and Brond. When tanking these two, I like to stack them up as much as possible while still leaving a little space between them to reduce the screen clutter for melee players. As the tank, you'll primarily be dealing with Bront, who has a tank buster called Wallop. This hits hard and should be mitigated. The main mechanic of the fight revolves around bombs falling throughout the room, which needs to be cleared by Bront's barreling charge. When Bront casts his ability, he will fixate on a player and charge toward them after a 3.5 second cast. The goal is to position him so that he charges through as many bombs as possible. Then quickly strafe out of the way to avoid the knockback and damage once he starts running. From my experience, Bront will use this ability 3 times, with the last charge always targeting the tank, so be prepared to position yourself accordingly when this happens. Last crucial thing to note is that once either boss dies, the other will enrage, gaining 20% increased damage every 4 seconds. And because of this, you'll want to bring them down as close together as possible to avoid an extended rage phase.
Targeted.
Once the Demolition Duo is dealt with, explode the last stockpile and detonate the trigger to destroy the ship above, which will remove the large patrolling circles over the water. From there, run off the eastern platform the way you came, sticking to the middle of the water to avoid pulling any bombshell crabs. Before reaching the next boss, you'll need to pull the 6 disturbed kelp mobs that roam the boss area. Other than some AoE pulses that the healer needs to handle, their main ability to watch out for is Restorative Algae. After a 2-second cast, this ability causes them to heal themselves significantly, so shutting them down with AoE interrupts or crowd control is usually beneficial. Set the charges to move on to the next boss, and second reason why having a ping bound is so useful: Swampface. As the tank, watch out for Sludge Claws, which is a heavy hitting attack that must be mitigated. It also applies a huge healing absorb debuff, which the healer needs to remove. The boss will also cast Razor Choke Vines, which binds 2 players together. If they move 14 yards apart, they'll be yanked back towards each other, which is not far enough to avoid the next ability, Mudslide. Mudslide deals massive damage to anyone caught within it, so picking a direction for the whole group to move together or pinging it can be a huge help in preventing unnecessary deaths. And lastly, be ready to dodge rushing tides, which will spawn and move out in every direction. Anticipate the movement and position yourself accordingly to avoid getting hit. Once Swampface has made one with the swamp again, you'll head towards the final boss through the sewer entrance. Jump down, but be careful just around the corner. Don't get too close to the next pack, as they will soon be overrun by Bubbles. Bubbles is a mini-boss that might warrant bloodlust if the group has been struggling with the dungeon or is lower geared. When tanking Bubbles, pull her back to one of the corners until she buffs up bubbles around the area. Anyone who pops one of these takes massive damage and will likely die unless it's the tank. Once the bubbles have spawned, move Bubbles to the opposite corner, repeating this back and forth movement. If the previous set of bubbles hasn't despawned yet, you can use the middle of the room as a safe space. Be mindful of positioning because you can get caught and cornered, as you cannot cross over or under the red wire in the corner. The other ability to watch out for is Splish Splash, a large frontal cone attack in a random direction that deals massive damage to anyone caught in it. Next up, if you follow the route I laid out in this video, you should have enough percentage to skip the Sleeping Darkfuse jump starter in the back. While this route may not be the absolute most optimal, I prefer it because it allows me to skip this mob and not having to combine it with the electricians and the inspector. However, if the jump starter does get pulled by accident, the group will have to deal with a lot of AoE on the ground. This can be dangerous, as an unlucky surprise inspection from the inspector, which is a large frontal cone attack, might cause space issues or strain the healer, especially when combined with Overcharge from the Venture Co-Electrician. Overcharge places a heavy ticking damage debuff on a player and if it isn't dispelled before expiring, will stun them for 5 seconds. Because of this, you'll never want to pull more than 2 electricians at a time, as that's the most a healer can realistically handle with dispel cooldowns. After this, you can run around the corner, skipping the 2 electricians in front of you and pulling the patrolling pack with the 2 inspectors just past the doorway. The safest approach is to clear these separately, mainly because of their frontal cone attacks. Some players might opt to combine them with the next pack, but I rarely do this because it just makes things needlessly messy in my opinion, unless we are really pressed for time and have a good group. For the next pack, you'll be pulling the 2 electricians, which will put some more pressure on the healer, alongside with the Dark Fuse Jumpstarter. As mentioned before, the Jumpstarter will hit the ground with battery discharge, dealing a lot of AoE nature damage. Also, be aware of Spark Slam, which hits you for a fair amount of damage, so be ready to mitigate it when needed. Before facing the last boss, you'll need to deal with 2 Jumpstarters, which means you'll be taking 2 Spark Slams back to back. This can put significant pressure on your mitigation, so if you notice it's straining your defenses, play cautiously and consider staggering cooldowns to avoid getting overwhelmed. You've made it to the final boss of the dungeon, Geezle Gigazap. This mad goblin will tamper with the generator, blasting every player with electricity and sending out lines of energy that you need to sidestep. The second ability, which indirectly affects you as a tank, is Gigazap. This targets a random teammate, dealing damage and electrifying any water it touches. A common mistake is that players think that they need to electrify all of the puddles, often leaving you with less than ideal placement when you actually need them later. Because at some point, leaping sparks will start chasing you, and you'll need to kite them over a non-electrified puddle to dispel them. However, right after a spark starts chasing you, you won't have much time before the boss hits you with Thunder Punch, a tank buster that deals massive physical and nature damage. This ability must be mitigated, but the real danger is the knockback, which can send you flying if you're not positioned correctly. To avoid getting knocked off the platform and instantly dying, make sure you have plenty of space behind you when Thunder Punch goes off, or, ideally, position yourself with your back against the generator. Asking your group to leave a non-electrified puddle near the boss will also make managing leaping sparks much easier, preventing things from getting too hectic. The rest is just rinse and repeat. Once you have taken down Geezle Gigazap, you've successfully completed Operation Floodgate. I truly hope this guide has been helpful and interesting to watch. And if it has, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. If you have any questions or suggestions on which dungeons to cover next, let me know in the comments below. I do plan to cover all Mythic Plus dungeons eventually. But as a family man with a full-time job, my time for gaming and content creation is limited, so please bear with me in the meantime. For now, I'd like to thank you for watching, and you'll hear me in the next video.